A year away from the election that I'm running for, and so for you to take some time out on a Sunday, I really appreciate it. The first thing I want to say is that we welcome this to everybody. So there might be different opinions on issues, but at the end of the day, we're all Iowans and we're all Americans, and I just want us to be respectful of each other. And so I just wanted to, this is our first tour going to all 39 counties, and we're calling it the Don't Forget About Us tour, stopping in towns of 1,000 people or less. And for us, this exemplifies what our campaign's all about. It's about getting out to the people, finding where they're at, and really try to get folks engaged, especially folks who don't traditionally get engaged. And so that's a huge part of what we're trying to do, is just get out there. And so I think this is our 7th, so we're still early on in all of them, but it's been wonderful so far. And this is, so many campaigns are driven by consultants and stuff like that. We don't do that. We get out here to the people and listen, and I think that's one of the reasons we had success last time. And so I guess I also want to a little bit reintroduce myself and what our campaign is. So I'll give a brief of how I decided to run last time for folks who may not know, and then what came into the decision of running again for a second time. So when 2016 election, when that happened, it affected a lot of people differently. And for me, I wanted to get more active, but at the time I would happen to be living out of state, and any time in my life when I wanted to do something but I didn't know what I wanted to do, I went to seek my grandma for advice. My grandma's my biggest inspiration in my life, and she was at a nursing home, and she had this idea that I should work at that nursing home and take care of her. And I go, Grandma, that's a great idea, but I don't have a degree in healthcare. I don't think they're going to hire me. And she agreed, and she goes, you're probably right. And so the next day she had something similar, and again, it wasn't going to work out, and again, and by day 6 I was feeling inadequate. But on the 8th day, right before I had to fly back, she said something that really stuck with me. And we have a family farm, and she said, JD, you need to move back to Iowa and take care of the farm. Now, we rented out to a family friend, but it really resonated because a month later she passed away. And it was at that rural church where she was an active member most of her life, and not too far from here, but it's up the road a little bit. Our family farm is outside of Lake Mills. I grew up in Sioux City, though. And at that rural church, I felt that pull to come back home. And so a month after that, I started looking in the Sioux City Journal, my hometown paper, for a job. And after a month, the best job I could find was $15 an hour and no benefits. And in Seattle, I had a really good job, and things were going well. And so it was a sacrifice coming back home, and all of a sudden I decided, you know what, there's not a job for me, so I created my own job. I became a freelance paralegal, and then I was on the hook for my own health insurance since I was my own employer, and saw the prices with that, and just things started to fume up, and there was nobody on the Democratic side when I decided to announce 2 years ago, and so we launched very humbly. But we started this grassroots movement of getting out there to the people, and that was our goal from day one. On my personal vehicle, put 35,000 miles on that, traveling nonstop, and I realized nobody saw me when I came in and out of town. So I got a Winnebago. We got Sioux City Sioux, and that was my goal from the beginning, is get a used Winnebago, throw my logo on the side, and go nonstop. And it's been fantastic, and we brought it here today, and we continue to bring that thing on the road. And so I took my political philosophy from my political heroes, which Berkeley Bedell and Tom Harkin. And it's, if you get out there to the people, you prove that you're trustworthy, and prove that you're going to fight for your district and your constituents, you're going to earn votes. And that's what we were able to do. We went to all 39 counties at least 3 times, most of them 5-6 times last cycle. And I view it in 3 different ways. The first time we went out there, a lot of folks were like, oh, God bless you, somebody should run against him. The second time it was, oh, you're just not bashing Steve King and anti-Steve King, you're standing for something. And that's what was, from day one, that's what I wanted, is we're standing for something. We're trying to earn votes. And you don't do it by just bashing the other side. And then the third thing is, the third time going around, we saw the hope. And I knew we were on to something pretty special when we saw the amount of yard signs, the amount of thumbs up we get when we drive into towns like here, all throughout the district. And as a result, we moved the needle 24 points, which is the 3rd most in the nation amongst all challengers. We outperformed the top of the ticket in this district by 17%. We got 25,000 more votes than there are Democrats in this district. And the thing that I'm most proud of is in my county, in Woodbury County, King has never lost, and we got 54%. And so, looking back at the election and a lot of the things, I couldn't have run again if it wasn't for some of those things, and especially in my hometown, which we realized that the more times I connect with the voters, the better chances of us getting someone to vote for us, and for them to understand what we're about and trying to just engage with folks. And so, as a result, I decided to run again in between last cycle and us launching this cycle. I started a nonprofit, an anti-poverty nonprofit that focuses on the earned income tax credit. That allowed me to get around a little bit and talk to some folks and do some good that way. I've had to kind of step away from that since we launched a campaign. But as far as what the campaign is this time, it's a lot of the same things we did last time. We just felt like we ran out of time. When you start from scratch to move as far as we did, it took a lot of energy and everything, but the biggest thing that was against us was time. Now, it's night and day compared to 2 years ago. We got 15 months, they're now down to 12 months to really, and some change, to really build the type of campaign to not only compete but to win, and that's our goal. Last time we hoped to win, this time we expect to win. And so I'm going to talk about a few issues before I open it up. Again, like last time, our message is very simple: fix, fight, and secure. It's about fixing healthcare. It's about fighting for an economy that works for everybody. And it's about securing our democracy, because right now, the amount of special interest and things that dictate our democracy out in DC, it's not helping this district and a lot of the hardworking folks in this district. And so when it comes to healthcare, we got 18 or 20 presidential candidates all running. Each one of them on the Democratic side, and each one of them has a plan. I'm for all of them. It's that simple. Every one of them is going to improve our healthcare system. Every one of them. Whereas on the other side, they're not only trying to get the status quo, they're trying to take away our healthcare. And so every time I stop and get gas, like I did this morning with Sioux City Sioux, and Lord knows I keep the ethanol industry alive and well with that thing, we see a donation box of someone who just got sick or someone who just got in the hospital. We have so many pancake breakfasts, GoFundMe sites that pay for our medical expenses. We're the wealthiest country in the world. The wealthiest country in the world, and we can't take care of our own. And we're the only Western developed country in the world that doesn't have a healthcare system that benefits the society. And so I think our goal is Medicare for all, but I think it's going to take steps to get there. We need to do better, and we need to value ourselves, and I feel that's a huge part of what's going on is we don't, I can get to that in a little bit, about value and what do we value. So the second thing is fighting for an economy that works for all of us. You see that tax bill in 2017. Right now, if you're a truck driver, a plumber, a farmer, a teacher, you pay more taxes than the top 400 wealthiest people in America. That's nuts. That's nuts. That's not how this system is supposed to work. And so Berkeley Bedell, I had a chance to talk to him a couple of months ago. He's 98, doing very well, and he goes, JD, if you have wealth, this country works for you. If your corporation is doing well, this country works for you. Or if you have enough money to pay for a lobbyist, this country works for you. But it's not working for so many people who are trying to do the right things, right? Whether you go to college or straight into the workforce, the tax benefits, they don't benefit the working class. And you see a lot of that, I view it as there's a lot of entities that are bullies. And so one of the big things that you'll hear me talk about, especially in agriculture, is monopolies. And how whether it's if you raise cattle, hogs, or row crops, sorry, whatever entity you are in farming, or maybe you're all there are combined several of them, there's usually 3 to 4 companies that dictate everything. They dictate your inputs, they dictate the markets, they dictate the trade policies. And what we're seeing as a result is of the consumer dollar, less than 15 cents makes it back to the farmer, which is lowest of all time. And we have these bullies in our economy that dictate everything. And so we got to get this back to a government of the people, by the people, for the people. And that leads me into my third point, securing our democracy by cleaning up DC and the special interest that dictates that. And so it just, the amount of money that it takes to put into campaigns and all that stuff, we need to clean that up. It just, folks, when they win and end up in DC, they spend so much time fundraising, they don't spend it on working together and getting stuff done for the people. And so that's a huge part of our campaign, trying to clean things up. My campaign didn't take any corporate PAC money last time, and we still won't, because again, that just, we want to walk the walk. And so that is what we're about, and with that, I would love to open it up to questions, or a dialogue, or interaction, and I don't want this to be me speaking the whole time, even though I've done that so far. So.
Yeah, I think it's paramount, you know, we're a little county, Wright County, I think there's only about 14,000 of us.
Yep.
But for some reason, we're in the top 3 for confirmed child abuse cases.
Really?
And I think it has a direct relation to the corporate farming and the type of environment that brings in.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I've even talked to counselors, they say, try to make it aware, but I'm like, what are you professionals doing? Or,
yeah.
you know, it's pretty up there as far as a concern of mine.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that goes, I think we can broaden that even into a couple different areas. One is counseling and mental health and a lot of things that go along with that. Last year, we were 51st in the nation in mental health beds. We don't take care of ourselves mentally in a lot of ways, and you see the cuts to USDA, which ultimately hurt rural America in towns like this and counties like this. We're going in the wrong direction with a lot of that stuff. When we talk about healthcare, I don't want to just limit it to our health insurance or anything. I want to add mental and dental to a lot of those things. And so that's part of it. The one of the things that I get really frustrated with was you look at Smithfield, which owns 1 in 4 hogs in America, and here in here in Iowa. They're owned by China Pork. And the CEO of China Pork in 2017 made $291 million in just 2017. And yet I talked to pork producers all throughout this district, and they're struggling to make cost of production. There's a disconnect there. And you look at Cargill, and the family that owns it, it's a private entity, and 125 family members, a month or 2 ago, they all got paid out about $5 million apiece. And yet, farmers out here are making costs of production. And you look at the tariffs that have happened, and what had the biggest effect on the tariffs is not necessarily, well, the biggest effect is the global supply chain is shifting. And so where we have plenty of grain that we can sell to China, they're now looking down to Brazil. And you look at the Amazon fires out down there, that's a direct relation that China's looking to go down to Brazil, and those fires are there to make that land into soybean fields. And so that not only is that taking markets away from us, but it's also adding to climate change. And so I'll get, I want to add one little thing too before we get too far. In the Democratic debate, in all the debates, they got asked, what's the biggest geopolitical threat to the United States and to us? And it was very clear, there's two: climate change and China. Now, if you look at China, they haven't been in a war since 1979, longer than I've been alive. They're investing in themselves. So from 2011 to 2013, they produced and used more concrete than the entire United States did in the 20th century. They're building. And if we're not building, we're going to get blown out of the water economically. And right now, you look at where America is really thriving. You have these coastal areas, you have Silicon Valley. In America, there's only 50 counties that venture capitalists invest like 98% of their money. Only 50 counties of the 3,000 counties in America. And so, what does that mean? That means if we're going to compete as a nation of 330 million people against one that's 1.4 billion, it means that every district, every community needs to have a role to play in this. And that's why I firmly believe that economically, if we're going to thrive, we got to start investing in districts like this. Whether it's investing in technology, investing in nursing and teachers and education, that's how we're going to compete against China. And it gets back to what do we do once we have the investment, and what are we doing to take care of ourselves? Do we value our health? Do we value our workers and the working class? And do we value our Constitution? And that's why Fix, Fight, Secure, we continue to go back to that. Good question.
I always have something.
Yeah.
Cody's got some more.
Thanks. Yeah.
I'm going to go a little different direction than I normally go. I usually do farm and environment, sustainable agriculture and all that. But I would like to focus a little more on small counties like Wright County. We're losing our stores. We lost our Shopco. And now we're down to a high-priced grocery store and a Dollar General.
Yep.
And Belmont and Eagle Grove each have a Fairway, but we have a locally owned grocery store. My ideas are, I would like to get back to co-ops. So you go to Ames and Des Moines, and there's co-ops down there, but they already have, Walmarts and Targets and Hy-Vee and Fairways. They have everything. We don't have that much. So if we can get co-ops in all these small counties where people can go in and get their stuff in bulk, and I would like to reduce a lot of the plastic that we're using by having people use reusable containers, go in and fill up their flour, sugar, shampoo, laundry detergent, whatever, take it home and do that. And then sell things that are locally made, locally grown, locally produced in those co-ops.
Yeah.
So like for each county, one co-op where everybody can go to that and participate.
Yeah.
And then federally, like there should be funds for that, because we can give money hand over fist to Apple and Facebook and Google and all these big corporations. But what about the little guys that want to start something like a co-op?
Well, and this is exactly right. So you look at, we're the second most agricultural producing district in America. And and we're in the heart of everything right here in Wright County. And as far as I'm aware, we have 2 farm-to-table restaurants in this district of the 39 counties. In Sioux City, if you take Highway 20 east like we did today, the next 3 towns have all lost their grocery stores in the last 5 years, and 2 of the 3 have gained Dollar Generals. And so if you just want to have a BLT in Correctionville, Iowa, you either have to grow your own tomato or drive a half hour into Sioux City to get a tomato. And just, who are we growing all this for? When farmers aren't making a dime and we're not valuing our health, who are we doing this for? And this is where a lot of these monopolies are bullying the situation. They're bullying the economics of the reality of what's happening. And so we went through this 100 years ago. And you look at the history of the United States. The reason the Boston Tea Party happened is because they had a monopoly, and the people were upset, and so they revolted. You look at what our founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson wanted in the First Amendment to add the freedom of religion, speech, and the press, and all that. He wanted a freedom against monopolies. And you look at what happened 100 years ago with Teddy Roosevelt, and then followed up with Taft. Roosevelt had 45, and both of them are Republican presidents. Roosevelt had 45 antitrust lawsuits in during his term, and then Taft had double that and had 90. And as a result, we're coming up on the 100-year anniversary of the 1921 Stockyards and Packers Act. And so these were all set place by and the antitrust movement, which is started here in Iowa. The first antitrust lawsuit was to protect farmers right here in Iowa. And so we're seeing the same exact things that we saw 100 years ago. Upton Sinclair wrote The Jungle. We are more consolidated now than when he wrote that. And people aren't realizing this dictates how we eat. This dictates our policies. This dictates the wealth that is taken out of our communities. We need systems to protect the communities and to make sure that the money that we raise here, it stays, not all of it, but more so we can pay for our schools so they don't continually consolidate. So we can live a quality life. And so when it comes to how we eat and everything, we need to have localized, regionalized markets. And I think the best way that we can start that is by having a farm-to-school program, a federal farm-to-school program to help rural America. And then from there, I think we can expand on that, on how and to have localized and regionalized food systems. Sioux City doesn't have a co-op. It blows my mind. It's the largest city in this district,
How big is Sioux City?
90,000 people. The metropolitan area is about 125,000. We have the national retail chains of food, but we don't have a lot of localized food. And that's what I've seen, a huge difference from my grandparents' generation to mine and where we're going. And we're going in the wrong direction. It's not adding value to what we eat, our health and all that. And it's not adding value to our farmers either. So who's winning here? It's not these communities. You guys are making it easy. Or did I scare you too much?
Did that answer your question, Shannon?
I just want some money for small businesses versus big corporations.
And USDA should be doing that on a lot better scale than what they are. But now the battle of, they moved USDA from DC and they're trying to get it where we're losing a lot of brain power. We're not, USDA, we're losing a lot of brain power and folks who have been there for decades.
That's by design.
Right. And
They can't fire them, so they have to force them to quit.
Right. And so it gets back to, what are we valuing as a society? And nowhere is it, you see things that are more and more going in the wrong direction in these rural communities. These are we're at the front line of a lot of issues. Like Up in O'Brien County, they have one grocery store. Or not O'Brien County, Osceola County. They have one grocery store for the whole county. And it just, yet they're growing, we have all this amazing land. It just, there's a disconnect there.
It's sad to see these small towns go down, it really is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be. In one of the areas that we can absolutely start changing things is investing in technology, because that's where everything's going. We know that the economy is moving towards more technology and a greener economy, and that is where I'm scared as a nation, because China owns more patents on those things than the United States does at this point. And I view this as when in 1956, when the Russians put Sputnik, that America was challenged, and we came together and said, you know what? Nope, we're going to be first to land on the moon. And we got together, and at that time, of our GDP, 3% of it went into research and development. Right now, only 0.7% of our GDP actually goes into research and development these days. And so, what are we valuing as a society? Yes?
When Representative King was here recently, he talked quite a bit about his recent trip to some of the detention center and
Yeah.
the immigration in general. Could you talk a little bit about your positions on those?
Yeah, I actually went down to El Paso and met with Congresswoman Escobar down there. He did not, even though he went down to El Paso. There's no doubt that we need a secure border. Every nation needs a secure border. But what we're seeing, especially in this district, is we have a lack of a workforce. And that was the number one thing I realized last cycle. When I first went on my 39 county tour, stopping in main streets, asking folks, the two things I heard every time was healthcare costs are rising and I don't have enough employees or to grow. And nowhere did I understand that more than in Greene County, where their local elevator there needed 39 employees for the harvest, seasonal employees. So this time 2 years ago, they needed 39 people. They didn't get one American citizen to apply. And you hear that throughout the whole district. And so I've been working with a couple national groups on trying to potentially create legislation. If you're waiting in line to become an American citizen, and let's say Wright County comes together as a county and the Board of Supervisors said, yep, you know what, we need a workforce. If you're willing to come here and work for 5 years, you have a pathway to residency. And then once you have a pathway to residency, you have a pathway to citizenship. I think those are some common sense approach. The issue is there is a lot of where both sides can agree upon, but what we have is somebody as extreme on the issue as can be as our congressman. And when I did our first town hall in Storm Lake, Iowa, when I got done, there's a woman who came up to me and said, I just became an American citizen and my first vote is for you. Very moving. Right afterwards, she goes, it took 17 years and cost $17,000. And we just have a broken system. We don't have enough judges, we have backlogs, we haven't had comprehensive immigration reform since 1986, and we're long overdue.
I saw you praise Tim Ryan because as member of Congress he was the only one to endorse you during the primaries.
Yep.
Do you think you will endorse one of the presidential candidates before the caucus?
I'm leaving it open. I told them all not in 2019 because I'm really working on getting our campaign going in the right direction. Then I think January will be pretty hectic. So I don't know. I get asked about that a lot or about what's happening with them and everything like that. I think we're on different trajectories, and so and whoever is the top of the ticket, I'll support. and so, yeah, we'll see. So, how many, so we got John Delaney here, and then are you with Mayor Pete?
Yes, I am.
All right, and then is anybody else?
That's all we have.
Okay, very cool.
There's supposed to be more, isn't it?
So for me, it's between Mayor Pete and. Showing up matters.
Your message resembles Warren's speech.
Warren?
Did you hear her stump speech?
Yeah, I've heard it before. I mean, I think I've taken a lot from everyone. I've taken a lot from Delaney's.
I can hear a lot from a lot of the different
Okay.
the rural, the 50 county things, and then the Sputnik things directly from what John talks about.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The Sputnik thing I got from Rokana.
Oh, that's my
Tim Ryan used it as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
going around, I guess.
Yeah. So, the thing with Tim Ryan though, he gave a speech at the Steak Fry in 2017 that I just remember, like, I hear a lot of these speeches, and so very rarely do you get like really moved at this point. And I just remember hearing it, and I just was like, I got caught up in it. And so I went around and went to where his people were, and I told him, this is one of the best, and I might have used a word that I probably shouldn't have, speech in a long time I've heard, just to grab their attention, because at that time, like running in a primary, you need to make connections and network and stuff, and so we connected and we just stayed in touch, and through that, I got endorsed by a group called the People's House Project last cycle. They don't exist anymore, they just were trying to help last cycle by trying to get working class candidates into DC. Because at our town halls last cycle, I started every one of them off with the same stat, that the average person in Congress is 58 years old with a net worth of $1 million. Well, I'm different, I was 20 years younger and $1 million short of that average. But this cycle, it's a lot younger, it's more diverse, so I can't use it, but I like the line.
I want to go back to your comment about the immigration system, and the company in Sioux City couldn't get anybody. I just looked it up.
And Eagle Grove.
The unemployment rate in Iowa right now is 2.5%, so that's not a very big pool. The unemployment rate in Puerto Rico is 7.7%, and they're all U.S. citizens.
Yep.
They don't have an immigration issue.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, you look at both.
Yeah, but they don't have winter either. So
I mean, when Prestige was announced and when Siouxland, or the Seaboard Triumph was announced, both of them said we can't fully employ without bringing in an immigrant workforce. And so one other issue that I think it doesn't get described enough is the visa program as it is now. It benefits the coasts in what they need for agricultural visas, and not the full-time or full-year visas that we need here. And I think that, I mean, that's just a common sense approach of just changing the visa program a little bit. And really identifying what's agriculture and what's not. Like, is working in a pork plant considered agriculture, or working on a farm considered agriculture? And because that some corporations are abusing that. And so the other part of it too is, I mean, I mentioned Rokana earlier, Congressman Rokana. He was the congressman out of Silicon Valley, and he in Jefferson, Iowa, implemented tech jobs. Starting from high school, they get training, and then they can go off with whether it's Iowa Central or Des Moines, DMAC down in Boone. You can go there and you come back to your hometown and you can get $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 tech jobs. Like, those are game changers for communities, especially in the 4th district. And that's my goal and my vision of bringing technology into this district. And it's not going to solve everything, but it'll allow us to farm better. It'll allow us to have allow our students to get educated just like folks do in Manhattan, all around the world. It allows, I think, the next wave of telemedicine is going to be very important as a lot of hospitals in rural areas, it gets harder and harder to see doctors and consolidate in nursing homes. And so I'm extremely passionate about bringing technology into the district on a much grander scale. Yes.
Something on a lighter note, what was your baseball career?
You know, I'll describe it this way, that geographically I went pretty far in baseball, but the actual levels I did not. No, I was blessed enough, my dad was a college baseball coach at Morningside. And when I was born, he was assistant coach at Iowa State, and we lived in Nevada. And him and my mom, or I guess I'm going backwards in time, but him and my mom met at Mason City Newman as high school teachers. And so when your dad recruits you, you tend to, I had a hard time saying no to my dad, so I played for him for 3 years, had a chance to get drafted, I turned it down, and I went to University of Nebraska. No comment on the Huskers or anything like that. I will say it. I went there for baseball purposes and baseball purposes only. We were top 18 the whole nation, or the whole year in the nation, and we made it to the College World Series. After college, I got to play professionally and played in 7 different countries. Yeah. And last cycle, went out to DC for a couple meetings where there were a bunch of members, and they found out I was running against Steve King, turned a few heads, people wanted to talk to me. Then I found out I was outraising Steve King, more people wanted to talk to me. Then they found out I played baseball, and then I got swarmed. Because the congressional baseball game is very competitive.
Yeah. You got to play on the Field of Dreams, too.
I have not.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
Oh, I thought you went there with Bernie.
Mm-mm.
Oh.
They asked me to, but we had events in Sioux City, I think, then, so, yeah.
Because we were out for dinner last night with a guy that's a good coach from Fort Dodge.
Oh.
And he said he was standing behind you on first base, I think, and he had the radar gun to get the speed of the ball from pitcher to first base.
Oh.
And he just told you, don't miss the ball. Then you must not have missed it.
Who's that?
Bart McNeil.
Okay. Yeah. No, I was a pretty good, I would say I was a pretty good defensive first baseman as well. So, but baseball, pitching, I was a natural. I don't know. But I was a dime a dozen. So, yeah. Anything else? You guys are so quiet.
Give other people opportunity.
The last election, you had a really clever commercial where you shot a basketball when King kind of refused to debate you.
Yeah.
And you think that is going to happen again?
You know, I will say, I mean, this race is very unique in the sense that the challenger, I think it's the only race in America where the challenger doesn't have a primary and the incumbent does. And they're already making, scheduled for a debate on the Republican side. I believe King has agreed to it. I'm not sure, I haven't been following it that closely, but that one's being scheduled. And so if he does it there, I would be shocked if he doesn't against us. Last time he just tried to ignore us the whole entire time. I don't think that strategy worked, but he did win, so maybe it did work. I don't know, but yeah, I just what I see out in the field right now, and what my gut tells me, it's the same thing. After he got stripped of all the committees in January, and after the Des Moines Register, Sioux City Journal, and the Messenger all called for his resignation, what I see right now is there was a poll that said if I ran again, back then it wasn't announced, and we went head to head, I would win by 4. And my gut instinct is that's about right now. So we got a lot of work to do, but the momentum from moving the needle that much last time, and it just, there's a lot of potential here, and that's why I wanted to get out there. The way most campaigns, congressional campaigns work, especially right now, it's to tell you to stay in one place and just stay on the phones all day and ask strangers for money. And no, there's no doubt we got to fundraise, but at the same time, our campaign's about getting out there. And so we're gonna just continue to do that, I guess I can tell you now that our goal is 70%, and what that is on election night, if 10 people are leaving the ballot boxes, that 7 of them will say one of 3 things. That 1, they had a chance to talk to me in person, like something like this. 2, they had a chance to see our RV with their own eyes. Or 3, that they knew there was an event like this within just a mile or 2 away from them, and knew they were welcome to come and join us. If we can get to 7 out of 10 voters, we're gonna win this race. There's no doubt in my mind about that. And that's a tremendous amount of stress on my staff, and our volunteers, and on the RV itself. But that's our goal. I mean, that's what we're about. And so if you know of somewhere I should be to start connecting with folks right here in Wright County, whether it's stopping in at a factory or a store or whatever, let Cody know. Cody's our field organizer here, and we'll stop it. I'm not afraid to go anywhere in this district and talk to everybody. I realize I'm not going to win by 100%, but I want to engage with people, and that's what democracy is all about. And I feel that's this role that I'm running for. It's about serving people, and I feel that's one thing the current congressman doesn't do. He doesn't serve everybody. Yeah. So.
It looks like we have time for one more, if anybody has that last burning question.
I'll go if nobody else, but if somebody else.
Yes.
Yeah.
Going back to immigration,
Yeah.
and we have legal
Yep.
foreign people in our country
Mm-hmm.
who are looking for jobs, but they aren't qualified. How can we help them
Well,
to learn the skills
yeah.
so they can get a job?
Well, I think it's not even with immigration, it's everything. I think what we're failing right now, I'll give you an example, what I'm thinking about. I went to visit, I had my high school 20th reunion last year, and I went back to my high school, and when you walk the halls, there's pennants all over from schools that kids graduated with and went off to college. That's great. But a lot of these kids go to 4-year schools, get $60,000 in debt or $20,000 in debt, and then start working at a $10 job. $10 an hour job. Whereas some of the kids who went to get an apprenticeship or technical training of some sort, they get in and get $70,000 jobs right away. You see that in electricians. I know around Emmitsburg, just to get a refrigerator repair, it's about 2-3 months wait. And so there's just a lack of these jobs. And at the same time, where we're going as a community, it doesn't matter if you're truck driving, it doesn't matter if you're an electrician, teacher, whatever. There's going to be more complicated technological things that people have to know with these jobs. And so the best way we can invest in our economy, and this is proven throughout our history, is invest in education. And I don't feel that we value our education enough right now. I come from a long line of farmers and educators. And my grandma was a 5th grade teacher forever. And I have a lot of kids I grew up with. Heck, there was our first town hall this year in Dickinson County. I wore a shirt, or I have a sweatshirt that says America Needs Teachers. And a gentleman there came up to me and he said, I'm a lifelong teacher, my parents were teachers, my daughter was debating between being a teacher and I can't remember, I think a nurse maybe, and he goes, don't become a teacher. And that's where we're at, because teachers aren't getting respected, they're not getting paid enough. We don't have, when I was in high school, we were first in the nation in education. We're no longer there. And I know folks in Sioux City are often, they're going to, across the border to South Dakota or Nebraska. And when I was a kid, that was unheard of. Those teachers came to us. And so just as an Iowa focus, we're going in the wrong direction with that.
I felt like Alex's question was maybe geared a little bit towards, like, we get immigrants here and they maybe do a seasonal job, but then what are they left with and where are they left? You know, I have a very close friend who has been here since 2000, so almost 20 years, and she was illiterate in her native language, but she remains illiterate, and that remains an issue for her with work. Shannon knows her. And she has found now she has a job and she's working in a restaurant, but it's real, her boss is terrible, you know, and she's stuck and she doesn't have options. And so, if we're gonna make changes to the visa policy, like we have to have training, additional, resources and, or infrastructure to help kind of not just like get them here.
Right.
But.
Right. But, well, thank you, and that's exactly right, and I think there's plenty of jobs here. There are plenty of jobs here, but we need the right training and the right opportunity for them, and so, this is, and it's interesting, this is the same thing I'm hearing in Sioux County, and in O'Brien County, and in other places all throughout this district, and so, it's one of those things we learn at town halls like this, and maybe a lot of people overlook. And so, thank you for bringing it to our attention. So
that was one thing I mentioned when when we were going to the supervisor meetings to talk about Prestige before it was approved. You know, I said I'm all about diversity. I'm all about culture. Bring people. That's fine. But I want to make sure the supports are in place when they get here so that they can succeed and feel a part of our community and not just like outsiders.
Well, and that's what we're seeing. I don't know, the gentleman I think mentioned or had hinted at the Micronesians that are in Sioux City, that they came and they're legally allowed to work here because of different treaties we've had in the past. But a lot of them were trafficked, and they were promised all these things, and then when they got here, they didn't deliver, and now they're working, and it's not what they signed up for, and it's become national. It's recorded nationally too, and so that's absolutely wrong, and we need to have the services here to help push them, because if they do well, that means we're doing well. That means if our neighbors are doing well, we're doing well, and I think that's one thing as this 4th district, being so agricultural, we have a lot of policies that put neighbor against neighbor, and that doesn't benefit us. I mean, I look at row crops, and if you grow grain, soybeans or corn, how does Iowa corn grower benefit or make more money by wishing Illinois or Indiana has a drought? You know, that's not right. We're all in this together, and so Anyways, again, thank you so much. I know you could be anywhere on a lovely Saturday. Lovely for this time of year.
For Sunday.
Or sorry, Saturday. Sorry, Sunday.
It all runs together.
Yeah. No, thank you so much for being here. This means a lot to me, and we're just trying to build. And so if there's one thing that really moved me last time was the best advice I got from a family friend who actually just passed away over the summer. He's a member of the Winnebago Nation, and he was an activist, and so he was one of the first people I talked to because I wanted change. And he goes, JD, if you want change, you have to get uncomfortable. And once you get uncomfortable, you have to get others uncomfortable. Last cycle, our campaign got pretty darn uncomfortable. I spent more nights in the RV at a Walmart parking lot than I did in my own bed in the last 2 months. But it was worth it, and that's what it took. And now we know what we have to do, and that's why we're out here. And just, I could easily be watching NFL games in my bed right now. But this is more important. This is my meaning. This is what I want to do, is get out here and serve the people and improve our lives. Politics is about improving people's lives. And as Sherrod Brown mentions, the senator from Ohio, when you love your country, you're going to fight for the people who make it work. And it doesn't matter if you're a truck driver, a teacher, a nurse, whatever you are, or retired, this government needs to be working for the working class, and it's not right now, and so I'm hoping to change that up a little bit. But thank you again. I will say before I end that getting uncomfortable is different for different people. Some people, it comes natural, some people it doesn't. For me, all this is unnatural, but it's in here. And so if you have anything that you think you can help with for our campaign, we'll take it. Sometimes that means making sandwiches for staff or volunteers. Maybe that means hosting a staff member or volunteer for a day or two, or a weekend or longer. Maybe it's giving $5, maybe it's door knocking, maybe it's making a few phone calls, or maybe it's something we don't even know, but you have a skill. We'll try to put it to use, and so please let Cody know. But with that, I just again thank you so much for coming here. My name's J.D. Scholten, and I continue to stand tall for all. Thank you.